All right, everybody, buckle up because today we are going deep on something kind of heavy.
Oh,
Yeah, you guys requested information on H5N1 bird flu.
okay.
And let me tell you, based on the articles and the research that you sent in, things are getting
Interesting.
interesting is one word for it.
Oh.
Yeah, we're talking about some pretty alarming reports from the Sentinel Intelligence.
I've heard of them?
Yeah, and some seriously eyebrow-raising studies from Nature and the Journal of General Virology.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so you want to know if this is the big one, right? You want
Yeah.
to know how worried you should be
Mm-hmm.
and what you can do about it.
Makes sense.
Well, you came to the right place.
All right, let's do it.
Let's get you briefed.
You're right to be concerned.
Oh,
For years, H5N1 was considered a bird problem,
right.
something that most people didn't need to worry about.
Yeah.
But what's changed is it's jumped to mammals, and that's a whole different ball game.
Yeah, like that outbreak on the Oregon pig farm. Not exactly what anyone wanted to hear after that whole bat thing.
Exactly. This is what's called a zoonotic jump.
Okay.
It means that the virus is practicing spreading in mammals.
Uh-huh.
And that means it's only a matter of time before human-to-human transmission becomes more efficient.
Oh, no.
That's the nightmare scenario that everyone's worried about.
So it's not just birds anymore. Got it.
Oh, right.
But the big question that I think is on everyone's mind is this thing airborne?
That's what makes this so concerning.
Really?
Those studies you sent from the Journal of General Virology and Nature,
Yeah.
they show that H5N1 is getting better at replicating in mammalian respiratory systems.
Oh, wow.
They've even shown it spreading through the air between ferrets.
Hold on through the air.
Yes.
Like breathing it in.
Exactly.
Oh,
Now, it's not as easy for it to spread as the seasonal flu yet,
okay.
but the studies in Nature suggest that it's adapting fast.
That's not good.
And there's this gene, BTN3F3, that's basically been acting like our shield against this virus.
So we do have some natural protection.
We did.
Uh.
But the studies show that the virus is starting to find ways around it.
Oh, no.
So our defenses are being outmaneuvered, which
Yeah.
is why scientists are so worried.
Okay.
And this is where those claims about H5N1 being mild really need to be addressed.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. Mild doesn't exactly scream pandemic, does it?
Think back to 1918.
Oh, yeah.
That pandemic started mild too.
Right.
Then it mutated.
Uh-huh.
And what we're seeing with H5N1 is more than just your average cough and fever.
Oh, really? What do you mean?
Remember those articles you sent about H5N1 being mild?
Yeah.
Well, according to that Science News research,
Uh-huh.
scientists are finding lesions in the brains of infected animals.
Really?
We're talking seizures, even paralysis.
Wait, brain damage from the flu?
Yes.
This is way worse than I thought.
It's understandable to be concerned.
Yeah.
And this brings us to another area you asked about: food safety.
Oh, right. Everyone's freaking out about that. So is my morning latte and bacon cheeseburger about to become a biohazard?
Well, let's unpack that, because
Okay.
this is where those articles you sent on food contamination get really interesting.
Okay.
There are definitely some risks to be aware of.
Like what?
Well, you sent some research from Emerging Infectious Diseases and the New England Journal of Medicine.
Yeah.
They found that H5N1 can survive in raw milk,
Oh, wow.
even if you keep it in the fridge.
But what about pasteurization? Doesn't that kill it?
It might not always be enough.
Uh-oh.
And with meat, it's even trickier.
Okay.
Studies are showing that H5N1 can linger in meat for months, even if you freeze it.
Oh, that is officially unsettling. What are the authorities doing about this? Are they taking this seriously?
Well, this is where the why behind the news gets interesting.
Okay.
And it might make you even more uneasy.
I have a bad feeling about this.
The USDA has so far refused to raise pasteurization standards.
Oh, wow.
They're actually more worried about how it might impact the taste of milk.
You're kidding, right? Flavor.
Hey!
They're prioritizing flavor over potentially stopping a pandemic.
It's a head-scratcher for sure,
Yeah.
but it highlights how complicated this is.
Okay.
It's not just about the science. It's about economics,
Mm-hmm.
politics,
Huh.
public perception,
Wow.
the whole shebang.
So yeah, I'd say you're right to be concerned.
You are.
Okay, so we've got a virus that's jumping from birds to mammals.
Right.
Might be airborne, could be lurking in our food. And the people in charge seem to be more worried about the taste of milk than stopping a pandemic.
It seems that way.
I think I need a drink.
I hear you.
Yeah.
But before you start stockpiling canned goods, let's talk about what you can actually do to protect yourself.
Okay.
Knowledge is power. Right.
Right. So give it to me straight. What can we actually do about this? Is there even a vaccine?
There is a vaccine being developed,
Okay.
but the U.S. won't have nearly enough doses for everyone.
All right.
And even when they do, they'll likely go to high-risk groups first.
So not exactly reassuring.
Well, here's something more concrete. The seasonal flu shot might offer some protection,
Okay.
so it's definitely worth getting that.
Okay, got it. Seasonal flu shot check. What else?
And remember those masks everyone was wearing a while back?
Yeah.
They actually work,
Really?
especially the N95s.
The masking up is back on the menu.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And based on that CDC research you sent,
Yeah.
HEPA filters are a good idea too.
HEPA filters, got it.
They can really help clean the air in your home.
You know, this is all starting to feel a little familiar.
Huh.
Like, haven't we been here before with pandemics?
You're right to draw that parallel.
Yeah.
What's concerning is the level of government inaction we're seeing.
Oh.
It's like a bad echo of the 1918 pandemic and the HIV/AIDS crisis.
That book you mentioned, John Barry's account of the 1918 pandemic.
Yes.
It was basically a playbook for how not to handle a health crisis, right?
Exactly. And it seems like those lessons haven't been learned.
Ugh.
Which brings us to the big question.
Okay.
Are we doomed to repeat history?
Okay, before we spiral into an existential crisis, is there any good news here at all?
Well, there is one bright spot.
Okay.
You mentioned Michigan in your notes,
Yeah.
and they're actually taking this seriously.
Oh, wow.
They're actively working to track and contain the virus, which is something other states should be doing too.
So one state is on the ball. That's something, I guess.
It is. It shows that it's possible to take action.
Okay, well, this is a lot to take in. We've got a virus-jumping species, potentially airborne, maybe in our food supply, and a government that can't seem to agree on what to do.
Right.
Where do we go from here?
That's a good question.
What does all this mean for us, and what can we actually do about it?
Let's unpack that in part 2.
Right, sounds like a plan. Stay tuned, everyone. We'll be right back with part 2 of our deep dive into H5N1. Welcome back. So, we've established that things are looking a bit dicey with this whole H5N1 situation.
Right.
But you didn't just send us this stack of research to get freaked out, right?
Right.
You want to know what to do?
Exactly. And it's a good thing you're proactive because this whole situation really underscores how unprepared we are.
Yeah.
Remember that article you sent from the Sentinel Intelligence?
Yeah.
It drew some pretty chilling parallels between the government's response now and what happened back in 1918 with the Spanish flu.
Yeah, that was a pretty sobering read. Didn't they basically try to sweep the whole thing under the rug while people were dropping like flies?
It wasn't their finest hour. And you know that John Barry book on the 1918 pandemic that you sent?
Mm-hmm.
It really lays bare that pattern of downplaying and dismissing early warnings.
Yeah.
Newspapers threatened for reporting the truth, public health messages that were totally inadequate.
Wow.
It's like they hadn't learned a thing from history.
And it sounds like we haven't learned much since then either. I mean, look at how long it took for the government to take HIV/AIDS seriously.
It's a frustratingly familiar cycle, and it
Yeah.
makes you wonder if we're truly prepared to handle this H5N1 situation, especially with what we're learning about its potential for brain damage and food contamination.
Which brings us back to that food issue.
Yeah.
You mentioned the USDA dragging their feet on raising pasteurization standards.
Right.
That seems wildly irresponsible,
Yeah.
given what we know.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it's a perfect example of how science isn't the only thing driving these decisions.
Right.
You've got powerful economic interests, like the dairy industry, pushing back against any changes that could affect their bottom line.
Right.
And then you've got politicians who are terrified of seeming like they're overreacting or causing panic,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to something as sensitive as our food.
Yeah.
So it becomes this tangled mess of science, politics, and economics.
So basically, we're stuck in this holding pattern while they figure out how to protect profits and avoid bad press.
That's a cynical way to put it, but
Right.
it's often the reality.
Okay, well, cynicism aside, what can we do? You mentioned the vaccine, but it sounds like that's not going to be widely available anytime soon.
That's right. The U.S. is working on it. Okay.
But they estimate they'll only have about 10 million doses by spring of 2025.
10 million. That's a drop in the bucket for a country this size.
It is, and it really highlights our lack of preparedness.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, you can boost your odds by getting the seasonal flu shot.
Okay.
Some studies suggest it might offer some cross-protection against H5N1.
Worth a shot, literally.
Exactly. And don't forget the basics.
Okay.
Washing your hands frequently, covering your coughs and sneezes.
Right.
All that good stuff still applies.
Right. Good old-fashioned common sense. But what about more proactive measures? Like those masks you mentioned.
Absolutely. Despite all the politicization around them,
Yeah.
masks are still one of the most effective ways to prevent the spread of respiratory viruses,
Okay.
including H5N1. And if you're really concerned, invest in some N95 masks.
Okay.
They offer the best protection.
So masking up is back on the table. What about those HEPA filters you mentioned? Are those worth the hype?
They can make a big difference. HEPA filters are designed to trap tiny particles, including viruses,
Uh-huh.
so they can really help clean the air in your home or office.
Right.
Think of it like this. You highlighted these alarming studies in indoor air,
Yeah.
but you also sent research from the CDC about air filtration.
Right.
Putting these together means you have a way to actually do something about the risk right here, right now.
Okay. That makes sense. Masks, HEPA filters. It's starting to feel a bit like 2020 all over again.
There are definitely echoes of that time,
Yeah.
but here's the important takeaway. We're not powerless.
Okay.
We have knowledge and we have tools.
Mm-hmm.
It's up to us to use them.
So what you're saying is we need to be proactive, informed, and maybe invest in some good masks and air filters.
Exactly.
You know, one thing that's been nagging at me throughout all this is this whole human health is connected to animal health thing.
Right.
What does that actually mean in the context of this H5N1 situation, and what are the implications going forward?
That's a really important question.
Yeah.
And it gets to the heart of why this is happening in the first place.
We can't keep treating human health and animal health as separate issues.
Okay.
They're intertwined.
So it's not just about protecting ourselves from this one virus,
Mm-hmm.
but about recognizing the bigger picture.
Exactly. The way we treat the planet, the way we interact with animals, the way we produce our food, it
Yeah.
all plays a role.
So like what? Like what kind of things are you talking about?
Deforestation, climate change, factory farming.
Yeah.
These are all creating the perfect conditions for viruses to jump species and spread like wildfire.
So it's a wake-up call to start taking better care of the planet.
I think it's a wake-up call to reevaluate our entire relationship with the natural world.
Wow.
We need to recognize that our actions have consequences and that protecting the environment isn't just about saving trees or polar bears.
Yeah.
It's about safeguarding our own health and well-being.
This is heavy stuff.
Yeah.
So what can we do as individuals to make a difference? I mean, it feels pretty overwhelming.
It's easy to feel that way.
Right.
But even
Yeah.
small actions can add up. Being informed about these issues, supporting sustainable practices, making conscious choices in our daily lives.
Yeah.
These are all steps in the right direction.
So it's about recognizing that our individual choices, however small they may seem,
Right.
can collectively make a difference.
Absolutely.
Well, I think that's a great point to pause on.
I agree.
We've covered a lot of ground here, and I'm sure everyone needs a moment to process all this.
That's right.
But don't worry, we're not done yet. We'll be back shortly with part 3, where we'll delve into some more specific strategies and resources for staying safe in the face of H5N1. So stay tuned, everyone. We'll see you back here soon for part 3 of our deep dive into H5N1 bird flu. All right, welcome back to our deep dive on H5N1. We're back.
It's been a bit heavy, I think, but we're in the home stretch now, and this is where the rubber meets the road, right? We've covered the what and the why, but now let's focus on, what you can actually do to protect yourself and your loved ones.
Because feeling empowered is a much better strategy than panicking. I completely agree with that. So besides masks and HEPA filters, are there any other kind of everyday things people can do to minimize their risk?
Well, you might be surprised how effective those simple hygiene habits we all learned back in kindergarten still are.
You mean like washing our hands?
Exactly. Remember all those articles you send about H5N1 spreading through contact with contaminated surfaces? Well, good hand hygiene is still one of the simplest and most effective ways to break that chain of transmission.
So soap and water, hand sanitizer, the usual suspect.
Exactly. Make it a habit to wash your hands thoroughly and often, especially after being in public places or touching things that lots of other people have touched.
Got it. No more fist bumps for a while.
Probably a good call.
Yeah.
Elbow bumps or waves are a safer bet for now.
Okay, good to know. Now we talked about the vaccine situation.
Right.
It's not exactly encouraging. Should people still be trying to get it?
It's definitely something to stay on top of. As we discussed, the U.S. is working on securing more doses, but even when they do, the initial rollout is going to prioritize high-risk groups like healthcare workers and folks with compromised immune systems.
So it's not time to panic, but it's worth keeping an eye on.
Exactly. Check with your local health department or your doctor's office for updates on vaccine availability in your area.
Okay, good advice.
Yeah.
Now, let's say someone starts feeling sick and they suspect it might be H5N1. What should they do?
That's when it's time to call your doctor. Don't try to tough it out or wait and see if it gets better on its own. Early detection and treatment are key with any infectious disease, and H5N1 is no exception.
So no more walk it off
Right.
mentality.
Definitely not with this one. If you're experiencing any of the classic flu symptoms, fever, cough, sore throat, or any of the more serious neurological stuff we talked about, confusion, seizures, anything like that, pick up the phone and call your doctor.
Okay, so be vigilant, be proactive, and don't hesitate to seek medical attention.
Got it. You know, one thing that's really stuck with me through this whole deep dive is how interconnected everything is. Like, it's not just about us and this virus, it's about how we relate to the entire planet.
You're hitting on a really crucial point there. This isn't just about one virus. It's about recognizing that human health, animal health, and environmental health are all inextricably linked. We can't keep treating them as separate issues.
It feels like we're finally starting to wake up to that reality, but are we doing enough? I mean, are we actually changing our behavior?
That's the million-dollar question. We've got deforestation happening at alarming rates. Climate change is accelerating, and our industrial farming practices are creating the perfect breeding grounds for these kinds of zoonotic diseases.
So it's not just about masks and vaccines, it's about addressing those root causes.
Exactly. And that means taking a hard look at how we interact with the natural world. We
Yeah.
need to shift away from practices that are destructive and unsustainable and start embracing solutions that promote both human and planetary health. Okay, so big picture changes are definitely needed.
Hmm.
But what about us as individuals? What can we do in our own lives to make a difference?
That's where it gets really empowering because even though the challenges are huge, we're not powerless. Every choice we make, every action we take can ripple outward and contribute to positive change.
So what are some practical things people can do?
Well, it starts with staying informed and educated about these issues. The more you understand about the interconnectedness of everything, the more empowered you'll feel to make a difference.
Knowledge is power, right?
Absolutely. And then there's the power of your wallet. Support companies and organizations that are committed to sustainability, ethical sourcing, and reducing their environmental impact.
Vote with your dollars, basically.
Exactly. And then there are the everyday choices, reducing your meat consumption, choosing eco-friendly products, composting, conserving water, all those little things add up.
So it's not just about making grand gestures. It's about incorporating these values into our daily lives.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we're all part of this web of life and that our actions have consequences, both positive and negative.
Well said. And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive.
I agree.
We've covered a lot of ground, from the nitty-gritty details of H5N1 to the broader questions of human responsibility and planetary health. It's been a journey, but hopefully you're walking away from this feeling more informed, more empowered, and maybe even a little more hopeful. Because even though the challenges are real, so is our capacity for change. So stay curious, stay engaged, and stay hopeful. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.